Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
In Larry Wilson's classic book, Changing the Game, The New Way to Sell, Mr. Wilson notes an interesting trend with many successful businesses over time, and it goes something like this. Once that company becomes successful, at some point, what got them to the point of their success usually won't keep them there. In other words, for various reasons, these successful companies no longer maintain a successful position with their customer, either due to the changing times of their industry and the product they offered to their customers, or just simply bad management of the company, or, as my late great-grandmother Hazel used to say, they simply failed to grow and stay in business because at some point in their service to their customers, they began to rest on their laurels. So what does a successful business riding along in comfort and not willing to change with the times to meet the changing needs of its customers have to do with you, your retirement, and who you ultimately are going to trust with your life savings? Well, I'm certainly glad you asked. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest retirement planning specialist and full-time fiduciary, Tony Walker. And today we are going to take a deep dive into how and why we at Tony Walker Financial take the steps we take to make sure we are not only staying with the times, but more importantly, here with a process that allows our clients to trust the process because, as you're about to find out, the key to any successful business is first having a customer-centered process to work with them, then having a process in place with the business model to be sure that the business is here for the customer long into the future. So if you are retired or thinking of retiring in the near future, or maybe you're that person that came in to see me like the other day and out of the blue was offered a buyout from work, well, stay tuned as we share with you what you could expect should you decide to do business with Tony Walker Financial. With our topic today, it's the process that keeps us in business. I'm Tony Walker. This is the Worry-Free Retirement, and we will be right back. Want to know what savers were saying right before the stock market crash of 2008?
At our age, we just don't want to be on the roller coaster of the stock market anymore.
I'm not satisfied with my mutual funds at all.
When you work as hard as you have worked, you do want to be able to start enjoying a little bit of that money.
Stop putting your money at risk when you don't have to. Learn how to safeguard more of your retirement savings by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 877-499-9255. Our Live Well, Die Broke moments comes to us from a couple of clients of ours, Nathan and Patty Coleman, who are enjoying some wonderful hiking in Golden, Colorado. Now, that's what I call a Rocky Mountain high. Speaking of being on a high, let's start off this segment with a few household brand names in the retail world that were once sky high, but soon found themselves falling off a cliff. See if you remember any of these former household brand names. Borders Books, Toys R Us. How about this one? Pan Am Airlines, Ringling Brothers Circus, Circuit City, Compaq Computer, Blockbuster Video, and lest we forget one of my favorite staples as a kid growing up in the 60s, F.W. Woolworth. But it's not just those in the retail world who went from success to shutting down their doors later on. It's happened on many occasions to the big boys in the financial world as well. Household names like Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, and who could ever forget this company most recognizable by this wonderful commercial? So how do we at Tony Walker Financial keep this from happening to us? Well, while there's no guarantees in life that Tony Walker Financial might meet the same fate as these companies one day, I can assure you that with our 5-step process and dedication to meeting the changing needs of our customers and all the changes we know that's going to occur to them in retirement, I can assure you that we are way ahead of the rest of the financial world in assuring that our clients remain worry-free in retirement. Now, to better understand how we pull this off, let's imagine that while you're watching this TV show, or maybe listening to it on the radio, you decide to take advantage of something we call our free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. So, how is this all going to play out? Well, to get started, you're either going to go to our website at TonyWalkerFinancial.com, you're going to click on that Let's Get Started button, and we will spring into action. Or you're more than welcome to just call us by phone 24/7, that number, 877-499-9255. So you've done one of those two things. You're interested in finding out more about Tony Walker Financial. What happens next? Well, you're either going to get a phone call from me personally or from my appointment setter, Shanna Zachary. And she will set up this 10-minute phone call between you and I, and all we're going to do is talk very briefly about your situation to see if we can help. Now, if we can, then Shanna will set up that appointment for you and I to meet in person. The next step, you're going to be asked to complete something we refer to as a starter kit, and along with that completed starter kit, you're going to bring that to our first meeting with all of your financial documents. First meeting takes only about 30 minutes. We call this the vision exercise, where I'll personally use my more than 40 years of experience in this business, experience in meeting with nearly 20,000 savers, by the way, and I'm going to be able to quickly assess whether I think I can help you in retirement. Now, after this meeting, assuming I think I can, we're going to meet again in about 3 weeks after I personally lay out the game plan. And then I'll take the game plan and I'll meet with our income planning department to have them put my plan into our one-of-a-kind proprietary retirement planning software. So to help us explain what the income planning department does with your information and how this game plan will be a game changer for you should you decide to take advantage of our services, I've asked our own Lisa Allerkamp, who's in charge of that department, to explain more.
Our job in the income planning department here at Tony Walker Financial is to create personalized game plans based on Tony's recommendations. Our process begins with the income planning team meeting with Tony to review each case and discuss his recommendations. We then create a game plan that is easy to follow and on a year-by-year basis. Our plans take into consideration details such as taxes, required minimum distributions, when to take Social Security benefits, which accounts to access and when, and other aspects that may be specific to the individual. We put all of this into one game plan to provide our clients a tool that will help them have a worry-free retirement.
Now comes the fun part. After the income department completes the game plan, our office is going to put your entire case and assessment into your very own binder, where again, I'm going to personally deliver it and review it with you. I say fun part for you and fun part for me as I watch the reaction of the folks who for the first time in their lives actually see what they have in the way of money, and more importantly, when they're going to be able to use it and enjoy it without the fear of one day running out. I really can retire, many of them will ask, and I'll say, yes, you can. The reaction is usually something like, wow, now I know how much money I can spend without the fear of one day running out of money. Now, in many cases, after this appointment, the client is ready to move forward and move all of their money over to Tony Walker Financial, but sometimes they wish to think about it. Either way, no pressure. Either way is fine. Oh, this was something a prospective client recently gave me from an advisor when they were shopping around after attending a dinner seminar. Take a look at this page of chicken scratch. I don't even sure what that is, but that was what the advisor called their game plan, and that was what they were trying to convince this saver to turn their life savings over, a bunch of chicken scratch. Folks, you can't do that. When you compare this chicken scratch to the wow factor of our game-changing software, you're going to see the difference between a retirement planning specialist and those pretending to be one. But let's say you're not ready to move forward after that second appointment. That's no problem. Generally, in about 2 weeks, we will follow up, and that usually is Heather Hughes. She's my lead fiduciary out of the Bowling Green office, and she's going to call you by phone to answer any questions you might have about the game plan. So to share with you what the normal reaction is when Heather calls following that assessment, let's turn it over to her right now.
Well, Tony, what I do once you bring a file back after you've met with a client is usually in a week or two, I will touch base with the client to see if they have any other questions regarding their plan. Oftentimes, I'll walk them through that plan over the phone one more time. Um, Typically, a lot of questions I get from clients are, how does at death, what happens to this money? And can I make changes to the plan? So a lot of that I'm addressing with the clients. I also let them have their time, and if they're ready to move forward, I will get them in touch with the onboarding department and Beth. If they still need a little more time to talk, that's not a problem. I'll tell them I'll check back in a week or two. So we really want to have the clients move at their own pace.
All right, assuming Heather has answered all of your questions to your satisfaction, and then you decide to move forward with our game plan, roll over your 401k to us, maybe transfer your existing accounts with your present advisor, whatever the case may be, we then move to what we call our third step in the process called the commitment phase, or what we also refer to as the onboarding phase, where our crackerjack team of trained professionals will make sure we get all of your information correct on the front end, gather all the appropriate statements, call your 401 company to do the rollover, and whatever else we need to get everything moved over to the custodians that we represent at Tony Walker Financial. Now, in many cases, especially out of the Louisville office, our own Trey Juergens will take it from there in the onboarding process. So let's turn it over to Trey to explain those steps.
When clients decide to move forward with Tony Walker Financial, very often Tony brings them back to my office here in the Louisville office, and we confirm exactly what they want to move forward with. This allows me to identify what applications and paperwork would need to be filled out, and we set up a signing appointment from there.
Now we're on step 4 of our process. We call this the implementation phase. This is where we really take charge, let you sit back and relax as we move all the money over to the various accounts that we've set up. Possibly even if you've taken advantage of something we call the split IRA concept, which is where we use the many insurance companies for the annuities and, of course, Charles Schwab for all the investments. Now, while many in the financial world have tried to copy this concept of the split IRA, we actually have a process to make this happen. So to explain all of that to you and what happens as that money's moving over and we're implementing the game plan, I'm now going to turn it over to a person in charge of our new business department with all of the Schwab and new business, and that would be Miss Juanita Jackson.
Once you have made the decision to move forward with the implementation of your income plan, I'll be reviewing the account statements and also the employer-sponsored plans that you intend to roll into our management. It is important that I have the most current account statements on file to assess the holdings and determine the most efficient and cost-effective way to transfer the assets so that they can be rebalanced to align with your selected investment strategy. If you have an employer-sponsored plan, our rollover specialist, Craig Davis, will be reaching out to make phone calls or complete any paperwork that's necessary. At that point, we'll be tracking your transfers and rollovers, and we'll give you a call as soon as the funds arrive. At that point, we'll ask you if you have any immediate needs for distributions. We'll ask if you'd like to set up monthly recurring distributions for income, and we'll also notify the annuity department that funds have arrived and they're available for transfer.
Okay, now everything is in place. All the funds have been moved over, and now it's time to review the game plan one more time just to make sure you are happy with what we call the implementation phase. Now, depending on which office you meet with us, whether it's Louisville or Bowling Green, either Trey, the fiduciary in the Louisville office, will meet with you to go over the game plan one more time to make sure there's no questions. If you're in Bowling Green, that would be Heather, as she will do that too. And you say, well, why do you take all these extra steps? Folks, we want to make sure you understand this process. There's a lot that goes into retirement. And one of the concerns I have is many of you are just rushing and blindly throwing your money at these advisors and you have no game plan. And as you're going to see in a minute, there is no way to monitor your progress without that game plan. So to share with you what happens generally at these appointments that we call the binder delivery phase, let's turn it back over to my favorite son-in-law and fellow fiduciary, Mr. Trey Juergens.
The final appointment in the process is the delivery appointment. This is when we present the final binders with all the finalized annuity contracts and sleeves for future statements. And we go over this. It's really a nice time where our clients feel very organized and usually the most organized they've ever felt about their finances.
There is one more step in our process, and that takes place after you have become a client and that's called the Monitor Your Progress phase. That's step 5, where our staff of service professionals and fiduciaries are constantly monitoring your accounts, either quarterly or at least at a minimum once a year. And to tell us about the great pains we have taken to improve how we monitor our clients' progress during retirement, now I'm going to turn it over to the person in charge of our service department, Miss Mandy Houchins.
As part of the Monitor Your Progress program here at Tony Walker Financial, the service department does an annual review of each client's accounts. We look to ensure that each account is on track per the game plan, that income is being taken when it is needed, or if something changes, we can adjust that. It is very flexible. We ensure that RMDs are being taken and that it's getting satisfied each year once you are of that age. If something is off track, an additional disbursement has been taken that has thrown it off track, then we do take a step to reach out to the client, or we let one of the fiduciaries know that the client needs to be contacted to discuss things further, to make adjustments when needed. Our main goal at Tony Walker Financial is to make your retirement worry-free.
At Tony Walker Financial, we are very unique to the financial industry because we have a very good working knowledge of what we call fixed annuities. This is within the split IRA again. And then we also have a very good working knowledge of investments. That would be any investments with Charles Schwab, which is a brokerage company. Now keep in mind, we reached the $1 billion mark last year. We've had over $1 billion come into Tony Walker Financial over the years. And of that $1 billion, currently about $325 million as we record this show in late May of 2025. We have about $320 million or so in that range with Charles Schwab, with more than 2,700 accounts. So what is our process for staying in touch with those folks and keeping an eye on the Charles Schwab accounts that we personally manage at Tony Walker Financial? Well, for more on that, I'm going to turn that over to another fiduciary, my favorite nephew here in the Louisville office, Mr. Wes Walker.
So I help to manage the investment strategies at Tony Walker Financial inside of our Charles Schwab platform. Charles Schwab is a little bit different from annuities. Annuities have implicit guarantees, so the outcomes of them are very predictable. I work in our Charles Schwab platform, which is a little bit different. Charles Schwab has no implicit guarantees. Instead, you are investing into marketable securities like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and bank CD products. What we can do is help our clients determine how much risk they're willing to take and then assign a strategy to them in order to help whatever goal that they're looking for be more accomplishable. It should be said that our strategies are completely passive. We simply take a set percentage of exposure to the stock market and plan to hold that for the long term. Now, aside from our managed strategies at Tony Walker Financial, we also might help clients with holdings that they brought over from other institutions, which could include big positions in a single stock or other investments that they may hold.
So there you have it, folks, a proven process of successfully putting the client's needs for service and stability in retirement above our own. Because in my view, after studying businesses all these years and how to remain in business, you have to keep it simple by taking care of the customer, making sure your business model is keeping up with the times, and finally, the advisor you're going to trust with your life savings must, let me repeat, must have a process that can be explained and presented in detail, just like I've done today. So if that's you, maybe for the first time in your life, you realize the reason you're worried about retirement is because you have no written game plan in place. A game plan provided to you by a business like Tony Walker Financial, whose focus is you and keeping you worry-free in retirement. If that's you, we need to talk. And man, if we made this easy, we call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. All you got to do is take advantage of talking to me at no cost or obligation. Log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that little red box there. We'll arrange that phone call. And after talking to you by phone, if I think we can help, we will meet in person to work on getting you this free game plan. Internet not your thing? No big deal. Just call us anytime at 877-499-9255. We'll be right back. Our client spotlight today shines brightly on Miss Darlene Benzik. And Miss Benzik, first of all, thank you so much for being on the program with us.
No, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. So, Miss Benzik, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have lived in the area for all of my life, quite frankly. Currently live in Oldham County.
And how did you find out about Tony Walker Financial?
We had been watching your show, like before church every Sunday. And of course, he viewed through the lens of your concepts and strategies, and he was like, spot on. And we both viewed the end of your show. You always tie it back to the Bible. And so that's very important to us. And so we prayed about it, and we came over here and just started gathering all these pieces. And then you all figured it out. It's like we just threw it all on your table, and then your folks figured it out beautifully. So.
And how has the experience been in working with our staff?
Oh, my. I've told everyone this, front to back. Usually you have bad apple in every batch, and there aren't any. I mean, everybody's been so helpful. When my husband initiated our changeover to Tony Walker, which I'm so grateful that he did, a few weeks later he passed away. So I was, as anybody out there who knows who's lost a spouse, your world kind of shatters, and you're picking up all these pieces that you're unsure of. And then you sat down with me personally, and I sat down with Trey, and everyone's taken their time and always so patient in a time where I wasn't always on top of things like I usually am. So, yeah, I appreciated everybody front to back.
Well, you're so welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to be of service.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Who can you trust? It's one of the most important decisions you'll have to make. Question is, are you ready? Well, we're here to help at Tony Walker Financial. We care more about you than we do your money, and we have over 3,500 happy clients and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau to prove it. Rolling over a 401k, confused about Social Security, maybe you're afraid of running out of money. Learn how to use and enjoy and protect your hard-earned money. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement with the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
Our show today focuses on what Larry Wilson's game-changing book years ago focused on, and that's why so many successful businesses over time lose their luster and stop doing business altogether. A stark reminder in life and in business that in many cases, what got you there may not always keep you there. Or as my grandmother Hazel used to say, this failure of us humans who once were enjoying success, but now are out of business since they were resting on their laurels, and we forgot to change with the times and, of course, the needs with our customers. This word laurel has a ton of biblical significance that I won't go into today, but suffice it to say, resting on your laurels means that we are at some point in time satisfied with what we have already achieved and decide to make no further effort moving forward to improve and build on what got us to the point of success. This notion of resting on our laurels and sitting back in comfort reminds me of us Christians who are relishing in the finished work of Jesus Christ and forgetting that our faith is constantly under attack and this race to the finish line of heaven is still ongoing. In other words, while we may be saved, we must remain in the race. So what's our focus then? Well, Paul talked about such a race to the finish line of reaching our ultimate home with Christ in heaven as a race that requires endurance and one that we must not run in vain. This giving up on the race to the finish line so concerned Paul that he later asks newfound believers this question: do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? This prize of crossing the finish line into heaven is true in the race of endurance that long-distance runners face as well. In fact, according to research of marathon runners, there is something interesting that happens when a marathon runner literally sees the finish line. They begin to run faster because the sight of the finish line reminds them that the victory is at hand and the prize is near. With this wonderful hope of finishing strong when we see the finish line, King David adds to this equation the extreme joy of running the race of faith in the first place. The purpose of this finish line is to keep us focused and looking ahead, not looking down nor looking around. Notice in Proverbs 4:25 where the writer reminds us to keep our gaze focused ahead, even when the crowd noise tries to get our attention. We are to keep our eyes on the prize. Some have told me it is strange that a little man in a sweater vest would conclude each TV show with scripture about money and what the Bible has to say about it, but all the more reason to discuss the subject on this day as we think about our journey and what it is we're racing towards. The question is this: are you racing towards God, or are you and I racing towards prosperity? If it is to God, well, keep running to Him. But if it is to prosperity, beware of the result of such a dead-end race. King David, before his come-to-Jesus moment, felt this way, where in Psalm 36, he boastfully proclaims the following: "When I felt secure, I said, I will never be shaken." And the same thing can happen to you and I. Just when we feel secure that we've got the world beat, that we just crossed the finish line with what the world would define as success, like the companies we featured today who met with their demise, so can we. So Christian, you be careful of falling into this sin of presumption, that feeling you get that when you feel like you've made it financially and yes, even made it spiritually. My advice, never forget the prize that Paul talks about, the ultimate prize of being united with our Lord and Savior in heaven, an eternal prize that cannot be purchased here on earth, nor won by working harder, but a prize that is given to all who will believe and continue to race toward the finish line by faith, given to those who ask for it. Amen? Well, speaking of getting a second wind and seeing the finish line up ahead, I've got a good idea, and that's getting a second opinion and a written game plan that will not only show you how to win the race of retirement, but will give you a roadmap and an experienced firm trained in the art of retirement planning to help you cross the finish line. And to get out of the starting gate, all you have to do to get started with us is to take advantage of something we call the 10-minute fiduciary phone call, where you and I will talk by phone just briefly, and if it looks like I'm going to be able to help you, guess what? We're going to set up a no-obligation, no-cost appointment. That's right, you and me, to talk about your situation. So to take advantage of this free offer, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to see that little red button. Just click on that, and we will arrange that phone call. Hey, internet not your thing? We got that licked too. All you got to do is call 1-877-499-9255. You can call that number even on weekends. There are operators standing by, and we will arrange that phone call. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's show. We look forward to seeing you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement. But between now and then, if all else fails, you remember, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.